What is going on, everyone? It is DylanLasagna here, and welcome to another episode of DylanLasagna Live. Not on our normal day, but it is the day after the WWE Draft, and I gotta say, I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed with how the WWE Draft turned out. It was a big dupe, very big dupe with how the draft turned out. I'll get into my full thoughts on it, but all I can say is it started off as expected, and then it got some pretty good picks, and then it derailed from there. It completely went off the rails from there. So we're gonna get into all that in this episode of DylanLasagna Live. So that's pretty much all we're gonna be doing in this podcast today. Before we get into that, though, I do want to address a community post that I put up earlier today. I don't know if you guys saw it, and I posted it at noon. So let me see if I can pull it up here. I just want to plug it. Let me see. I did this community post here. I don't know. I just needed something to ramble on about. Because I feel like lately, and actually in the last several months, my channel has been significantly stagnant. I don't know if it's me, the videos I put out, or I don't know what's going on, but all I know is the subs that I have do not reflect the views of my content. So I do want to know what I can do to keep this channel going, because otherwise I have no I don't have any motivation to keep this going right now, but other than the podcast, of course. But I don't know. I if you want to go check out the community post, it's right here. I'm not gonna delete it or anything. It's just some little reality check, brutal honesty moment here. But I don't know. I just need a platform to vent. And it's not against any of you all. But all I can say is that if you were a longtime subscriber that has subbed for none of the new content on my channel, like the podcast, the Nintendo Switch stuff, or any of that, feel free to unsubscribe. I really don't care if you unsubscribe from my channel. It's do I take a hit to the subscriber count? Yeah, sure, but at the end of the day, all I care about is who actually watches my shit. Who is actually watching my shit. And it's who are the people that are willing to motivate me to keep pushing forward with my YouTube channel. Because otherwise, right now, I'm feeling really demotivated to continue on this platform. 10 years, for the first time in 10 years, I feel completely lost. I feel completely I feel like I don't want to continue doing what I absolutely love on YouTube, because we're stuck. We're not growing. We're the views have pretty much been there. People are watching. At least some people are watching. It could have been worse. It could have been 5 or none. No one's watching. But I kind of want stability. But you do what you do. I don't know. Just kind of want some consistency, active people. That's all I harp on. But we'll see. Go check out the community post, and I'm still having a lot of deep childish thinking that I'm doing right now, and especially in regards to my future on this platform. Because like right now, I'm really having thoughts of like not necessarily calling it quits, but like seriously, like trying to reconsider like how I approach my content. But we'll see. But anyway, enough of the I'm like rubbing the, don't think of it, I'm rubbing it as salty that nobody's watching. Let's get into what we're actually going to talk about here on today's show, and that is the WWE Draft. Now, if any of you watched last week's podcast, and I think it was number 75, I did a mock draft of the WWE Draft. And of course, 30 minutes before the WWE Draft, I had to change it up because from my initial version, because the rules state that for every 2 picks, SmackDown gets, Raw gets 3, because the WWE Draft bases it on the length of the show. It's still kind of dumb to me, but it is what it is. So, let's take a quick look at here at my what was my final mock draft for the WWE Draft. So here we had on night 1, we had AJ Styles go on the Raw side. I split it up between male and female wrestlers. And yes, I had Sasha Banks going number 1 overall. I'm not a simp. I just thought it was the most decent idea that they could do to get her away from Bayley. And as you can see on the SmackDown side, Seth Rollins going to SmackDown, Ricochet, Heavy Machinery staying together. But we'll get into that in a second. And then here was my night 2 mock draft. Wait, let me zoom in. I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. That's better. Sorry about that. And then I think I mentioned last week that there was undrafted free agency. I don't know why I included Brock Lesnar in here. I also included Charlotte Flair because I don't think because there was no indication of when she was going to be coming back, so I put her in the category of undrafted free agency. Because she was still having work on herself, and then a bunch of jobbers that were probably going to be undrafted as well. And then I had Becky Lynch also on here because I thought she was an ineligible pick anyway. And then another category of most obvious. So yeah, those were my mock picks for the WWE Draft. Most of them I would say came true. And if we take a look at the actual draft board here, let's take a look at the actual draft board. So number 1 overall, Drew McIntyre, and then obviously your first, the first of 5 picks involved the champions. For some reason I thought Asuka went undrafted, but I totally forgot that she was eligible on night 1. So stupid me. Very stupid of me to think that she went undrafted. I was for the dumbest reason. I went into Monday night thinking that Asuka hasn't been drafted to Raw yet, or Raw, because she was the Raw Women's Champion, and WWE Creative was about to go through the whole night 2, and Asuka was undrafted. And then I went into the draft result, and I had a ding dong dumb dick moment, and Asuka was drafted 3rd overall on night 1. I'm like, wow, it must feel very stupid. And then, so here are your night 1 results right here. I'm not going to read off the list because you obviously can see it on the screen. And then here were the other picks that happened in Talking Smack. And then night 2, which happened yesterday. This was one I actually got correct though. Number 1, like half correct actually. The Fiend going over number 1 overall. So I was actually surprised I got that correct, somewhat correct. I said on Friday that The Fiend and Alexa Bliss were going to be packaged together as the number 1 overall pick. But hey, I mean, I'm half right, I guess. And of course, they made like a lot of correct moves, I'd say. So the correct moves they obviously made were keeping Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns on their respective brands. Moving Seth Rollins to SmackDown was also a correct move. AJ Styles from SmackDown to Raw was also a correct move. A questionable move to me was having Sasha Banks stay on SmackDown, because if they were gonna like prolong the feud with Bayley even further, they would have drafted her to Raw. I mean, yeah, it would have made the result at Hell in a Cell predictable, that Sasha was gonna lose another Cell match, but then again, it builds the anticipation of Sasha's gonna win the Royal Rumble, and then she chooses Bayley, so she can, and then she wins at WrestleMania. Then she can go back to SmackDown. I mean, case in point. And then I guess like I really thought that WWE was gonna split up Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, but I forgot they're the tag team champions, so they have to stay together. I also thought that getting Bianca Belair on SmackDown, that was one of the very few moves that WWE did actually pretty well. Like the SmackDown Women's Division outside of Bayley and Sasha was very lacking, and they needed a big name, and they got it in Bianca Belair. Now that, because she wasn't doing anything on Raw, I mean, they started building her up via the promo packages. Now they can continue that on SmackDown. So, good move there. And then we'll continue to discuss some other big winners and losers later on. But those were some of my biggest highlights there. And then some other ones that here. Keith Lee, I don't know why. He didn't get moved to SmackDown. Jeff Hardy moving to Raw was the smart choice. Although, I don't know why he challenged Seth Rollins and AJ Styles to a triple threat tag team match on his first night. That was kind of weird. And then it's weird why Retribution was actually picked. I don't know why. WWE Creative actually went through and hey, let's waste a draft pick on the stable that's been causing havoc all over the Raw roster. That was a complete waste of a pick right there. And I guess this Dabo Kato dude is going to be an actual wrestler on Raw. So I guess. And then we had more draft picks on Raw Talk, so not a lot of note to note there. And then the free agent class, the only one that got moved back to NXT was Mercedes Martinez. She was removed from Retribution all of a sudden, and now she's going back to NXT. Chad Gable's going back to SmackDown. Lucha House Party is going to Raw. Billy Kay smartly they smartly moved her to SmackDown because I'll talk about the SmackDown Women's Division in a second. And then Tamina and Selena are going to SmackDown too. So the only two undrafteds that remain that are active are Andrade and Mickie James. So both of them remain undrafted free agents. And I don't know if that's an indictment of their standing in WWE or I don't know what it is. So let's get into my biggest takeaways from this WWE draft as a whole. And my biggest one of note is that the SmackDown Women's Division, it's outside of Sasha, Bayley, and now Bianca Belair, it's trash, man. It's really trash. Now, prior to Monday, I thought that who did I have here going to SmackDown? I had Billie Kay, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, Carmella, and then what else did I have? Oh, Mandy Rose and Shayna Baszler going to SmackDown, and then Shotzi Blackheart was going to be called up from NXT. And while Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, Carmella, and Billie Kay did get moved to SmackDown, I don't know why. Like, they didn't have Nikki Cross stay on SmackDown too. And then, like, again, prior to Monday, I thought SmackDown got the best draft pick of the night, like one of the best draft picks of the night in Bianca Belair. Because, again, the creative team over there can continue to showcase her via those promo packages until the Bayley versus Sasha feud is over after Hell in a Cell. And probably after Survivor Series, because they're probably going to do that brand warfare thing again. And then the problem lied in that Sasha is staying on SmackDown when she should have moved to Raw. And it didn't make a lot of sense because, again, if she loses in the cell in 2 weeks, she'll be sitting on the sideline while Bayley WWE Creative tries to churn up another challenger for Bayley. And, well, what do we have? Like, outside of those three? The Riot Squad, who hasn't done anything except for failing to get the tag team titles. Natalya, who hasn't done a lot outside of a failed tag team with Lana and trying to promote her TikTok. And then we have Carmella. Oh, I'll give Carmella a very slight pass because they're still trying to repackage her character and all that. And then we also have Billie Kay, who we don't know how she's gonna factor in post Moronics. And then Tamina is just there, and then Selena Vega. We've seen a large sample of what she can do as a solo wrestler, and it's not good. So they really got to get the ball rolling with the SmackDown Women's Division because it's not there. It's not there, and that's where the problems began. WWE Creative began to draft away like a large chunk of the SmackDown Women's Division last night on Raw. They drafted away Alexa Bliss, which that was the only female draftee that made sense because she's aligned with Bray Wyatt. So they moved Bray Wyatt. They got to move Alexa Bliss too. But they moved the likes of Naomi, Lacey Evans, but then they also which were fine moves, but then they didn't trade the likes of Shayna Baszler or who else do I have on this list? Mickey James or a or a Nikki keep a Nikki Cross on there. Or they didn't even call up anyone from NXT. Like, they should have called up a couple people from NXT to bolster that SmackDown Women's division, because there's nothing. There's nothing on that women's division. So like, fortunately, SmackDown has something to work with in the time being. But man, Triple H needs to send up at least a few women from NXT. Notably, I would have said Chelsea Green to Raw, but they already have Charlotte whenever she comes back. But put Chelsea Green and Shotzi Blackheart, like, they on SmackDown. They seem, I guess, like they're not doing anything in NXT. Have Triple H send them up to SmackDown, because the women's division really needs it. And then, outside of the women's division, the entire SmackDown roster, on paper at least, looks very weak. It looks very weak compared to Raw's. I mean, granted, I see why WWE Creative drafted away a lot of key players away from SmackDown, because, well, guess what? Raw, I guess, according to, even though SmackDown is on a primetime network in Fox, they still see Raw as their A show. So guess what? They're gonna draft away a huge chunk of SmackDown's roster to a show that's sinking in the ratings and continuing to sink because of Monday Night Football. And they probably lost, I don't know, they were surprisingly increased in viewership despite a very good Saints-Chargers game last night. But I don't know. But that's not the point. They lost 2/3 of the New Day. They broke up the New Day, but Big E's still there. They lost The Fiend and Alexa Bliss. AJ Styles is gone too. They lost Sheamus. They lost Matt Riddle, but Matt Riddle didn't do shit for them anyway. They lost Lacey Evans. They lost Elias. They lost Nikki Cross. They lost Jeff Hardy. They lost a lot of people from SmackDown. But in return, I mean, there's some decent names that they kept and received from Raw. So I guess they kept Kevin Owens. They got Kevin Owens. They kept Sami Zayn. They kept Sasha Banks. So I guess Sasha Banks staying on SmackDown is a good and bad thing. They also brought over Rey and Dominic Mysterio. That's also a good and bad thing. But more the bad side we'll get into later. Again, Big E stays on SmackDown. And then so does Bayley. And then Daniel Bryan. I mean, even though we haven't seen him in months, Daniel Bryan is staying there. And then also staying. Oh, Lars Sullivan, that guy. And then Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode. Apollo Crews is also going there, and then Carmella, and then. So, yeah, it looks pretty weak compared to what Raw has, like R-Truth, Alexa Bliss, The Fiend, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Charlotte, and then whenever she's ready to come back, Becky Lynch, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, The Miz and John Morrison. Oof. Big oof. So at least right now, the SmackDown roster looks weak. Significantly weak. But the tribal hero Roman Reigns is still gonna carry the show for the meantime until hopefully WWE can stop smoking the weed and actually build up whatever is left of the SmackDown roster. I think the big problem here though is that the SmackDown roster, the large majority of the SmackDown roster is just like the NXT women's division. There's too many heels. There is way too many villainous wrestlers right now. You got Seth Rollins, Baron Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro, Bayley, Natalya, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, Sami Zayn, Lars Sullivan. There's probably a lot more. And then the only babyface people you got is like Jey Uso, Rey Mysterio and Dominic, Big E, and that's about it. Like, my God. At some point in time, WWE Creative has to turn like a good chunk of people babyface because there's so much unevenness on the dark side of the roster. Like, of course, you gotta have the right people to turn face, but there's too many heels. There are way too many heels on SmackDown right now. So someone's got to turn babyface. So the sooner they address that, the better. And then we get to the tag team division. The tag team division, no matter what way you spin it, it's a broken mess. And let me first start off by saying that they broke up the New Day. It sucks. I was kind of shocked, like, that they actually did it. I didn't believe that WWE was gonna do it, but at some point in time, it was like, before I get to that, it's like I thought that New Day was gonna be one of those teams that was never gonna be broken up. That they were very popular with the fans. They sold a lot of merchandise. It's just like one of those teams that was just gonna stay together forever. But it was like they were at the same time they were also getting very stale, in the eyes of the hardcore wrestling fans. Like, and then it's like at some point, they had to wonder, is like, how were they gonna expand, or like how are we gonna like have these wrestlers' careers continue? So I didn't believe they were actually gonna break up the New Day, but fortunately, they only like split up Big E away from Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, which still sucks because Big E's kind of like, even though he's the muscle of that group, he has the most charisma out of that group. So at least Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods are on Raw, so the New Day hasn't completely broken up, but I don't think they're gonna succeed as well as without Big E. Speaking of breakups, Heavy Machinery, Otis and Tucker, this one made no sense at all. And this happened on Talking Smack, which is completely even more depressing. So, I don't understand this one at all. I get it. Otis, like, Vince McMahon likes Otis. Vince McMahon trusts Otis enough that back in May, history lesson, Otis actually won the Money in the Bank briefcase. When he was on this hot streak, he had a good storyline going for him when he was in that love angle with Mandy Rose, and he just beat Dolph Ziggler at WrestleMania, and Vince rewards him with the Money in the Bank briefcase that, in my opinion, was a shocker at the time, but I thought was too soon. And then they don't do anything to follow that up, like, for months, and now he gets slapped with the lawsuit, and the lawsuit gets delayed, and now all of a sudden they break up Heavy Machinery. This doesn't make sense at all. Like, I think that Otis has the charisma and personality. He has those factors, but I don't think he has what it takes to keep up in a match, like in a singles match, and doesn't have what it takes to present himself as a serious top world champion. Now, it's fine to be like goofy, like and like funny as a WWE champion, world champion, but on the matter of Otis, I don't know. But again, I can't set the standard of what is presentable as a world champion. I mean, look at how Conor McGregor looks at himself. I mean, that's the worst analogy that I have, but he presents himself as arrogant, cocky, like he jokes around, but again, at the end of the day, he gets the job done. I don't know about Otis, and especially when it comes to Tucker, I feel bad for the dude. Tucker is just going to be relegated to, at most, the 24/7 jobber title scene. And that's a very disappointing use of him. And I got to be honest, both Otis and Tucker thrive off of each other's personalities. And without each other, they're going to be eaten by the sharks. That is the rest of the WWE locker room. And that's sad. That's really sad. So, not only that, with New Day going to Raw with the SmackDown Tag Team titles, they had the street jobbers going to SmackDown with the Raw Tag Team titles. So how were WWE going to address this problem? Simple. They just had both teams exchange the titles. At a time where your tag team divisions are completely fucked, you just do a simple title exchange. Now, of course, they could have made it even more complicated, but this was just plain stupid, man. This is making fans feel even more stupid. What they could have done, because, well, they know that they can't respect tag team wrestling anymore like they used to, merge the tag team divisions. Come on. Anti-Smarks and Smarks, can both agree that merging the god-awful WWE tag team divisions is the best way to go here. But, you know what? WWE's too busy smoking the damn weed that Vince McMahon provides. And, let's just do a title exchange. So, New Day Light gets the tag team titles, Raw tag team titles, while the Street Jobbers, since they're going to SmackDown, get the SmackDown tag team titles. So, even though, New Day lost Big E and Heavy Machinery completely broke up, and also Lucha House Party lost Kalisto, they didn't take as big of a hit as the SmackDown Women's Division. So I'll give WWE some flack there, but at the same time, the SmackDown Tag Team Division doesn't really have much going for it either. So with that said, these teams, SmackDown currently has Cesaro, Shinsuke, Dolph Ziggler, and Bobby Roode, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic whenever they're done with their feud with Seth Rollins. And then the Jey Uso is probably going to be competing in the division again once Jimmy Uso is back and healthy. And then, of course, you have the Street Jobbers. So that's 5 tag teams there? But right now you have 2 because Jey Uso is feuding with Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso is injured. Rey and Dominic are still feuding with Seth Rollins for no goddamn reason. So all you have is Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode and Cesaro and Shinsuke. And then on Raw, you got New Day Light, your Raw Tag Team Champions, Morrison and Miz, The Hurt Business, the remains of Lucha House Party, and Retribution. So pretty much all heels except for New Day Light. So I mean, Raw is more balanced in terms of its tag team divisions. Like, so at least New Day is the hunted, but SmackDown is just like there's only 2 teams vying for that gold. Vying to see who's gonna challenge the Street Jobbers. So all they did was a simple ass title exchange when they could have just merged the damn divisions. So it could have been like a more competitive title scene. But then again, whenever it comes to merging division, you also have less opportunities for wrestlers. But it gets messy from there. And then this is where I get seriously heated when it comes to this. The point of doing a WWE draft is to end and reset feuds. What they did here was like they did switch some superstars to different brands, which was some of it. Very few of them were smart, but then they reversed. They reverse engineered it, their smartness, and had their current rival, like let's say a Seth Rollins. They did a smart decision by putting Seth Rollins on SmackDown, but then they also moved their rivals in Rey Mysterio and Dominic to SmackDown too, so they could continue the feud with them. Now, the feud itself was okay, but I can agree that it's been dragged on for far too long. Now, unlike with Jeff Hardy and Elias, which is starting to pick up, that's some long-term storytelling right there. That's actually long-term storytelling. But that's something I don't get. And they also moved Kevin Owens and Aleister Black to SmackDown together again. So pretty much SmackDown is getting like the crappy feuds that Raw was having for like the last several months. It doesn't make any sense. So I wonder what the SmackDown rating's going to be for this Friday on its season premiere. I don't know if any SmackDown carryovers was coming from Raw. I think the only one was Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, but that's pretty much all said and done with now that Jeff Hardy is going to feud with Elias. And I think that's the only one. But SmackDown got like the Raw leftovers, pretty much. But the point of a draft is to do feud, to reset the entire rivalries, the entire landscape of a roster, not carry them over, not just to switch places, okay? Just not to switch places. So it kind of makes the draft look meaningless, you know? It kind of makes creative look really stupid. It really does. So my other final takeaway from this draft is Charlotte Flair. I mentioned this earlier, and I thought that Charlotte Flair was going to be an undrafted free agent, because, well, we haven't seen her in months, but she still ended up as a top first round pick, let alone a top 5 draft pick. And I thought it's not the most major nitpick in the world. I just find it weird, you know. I just find it really weird that I know Charlotte's a big name, still a big name for WWE, and a lot of casuals. But I just find it weird that when there has been like no indication that there's no indication of her return, that she's still plugged as a first round pick. But I don't know, as a casual, like I'm not saying that I am a casual, but like if I was a casual fan, it looks like a wasted top 5 pick because, well, we haven't seen Charlotte in months, and she didn't show up at all on Monday. But then again, Charlotte's still a big name for them. And I will give WWE some credit for this. It does make sense to have Charlotte, like, whether or not she's a top, like, she gets drafted or she's an undrafted free agent. Like, eventually, she's going to go after Nia Jax. She's going to go after Nia Jax because, well, she's the one, like, Nia Jax is the one that took out Charlotte Flair in the first place. So, some more long-term storytelling there. So now we get to end today's episode of DylanLasagna Live. We're going to get to the winners and the losers of this WWE Draft. And while I don't have many winners, I actually have more losers than winners. I do want to point out the winners here. Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. I feel like if they stayed on SmackDown, it was going to get kind of crowded. And I also feel like they would have fell victim to Roman Reigns' new heel persona. So having him on Raw, well, like, I think Drew McIntyre wouldn't be hurt. Well, I do think Drew McIntyre is still a good WWE champion. He also wouldn't be hurt, like, if and when WWE decides to pull the trigger on having Bray Wyatt go after a WWE title, and whether that's Drew McIntyre or Randy Orton. Having Bray Wyatt and Lexi Quinn go roughshod on the, like, upper mid card and the lower level main event scene, like, really makes sense. And again, I correctly predicted that Bray Wyatt, like, half predicted correctly that they were gonna, like, Bray Wyatt was gonna go number 1 overall. So big winner there. Like, smart decision there by WWE to have Bray Wyatt be a very top draft, like, number 1 overall on night 2, and go to Raw too, so he doesn't get lost in the shuffle and eventually get whacked by Roman Reigns. Then the other winner is Seth Rollins. Again, Seth Rollins, like, although he's still stuck on the same brand as Rey Mysterio and Dominic, I do feel like that he doesn't really have much else to do on Monday nights. It's like he's been on there for, like, 4 years now, like, ever since the draft, like, the brand extension, like, reignited. So he's won the Raw tag team titles, he's won the Intercontinental title, he's won the Universal Championship, and he's had so many feuds that he can count on that red brand. And I feel like SmackDown gives him the most fresh start that he can have. Plus, I think, like, Fox executives will be really happy to have both Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns on the same brand because, well, I mean, outside of Jon Moxley, they still have that Shield mantra. But again, he's probably gonna be there in the short, like, for very short term, because I know he is gonna probably leave in, like, after Survivor Series or after TLC, because Becky Lynch is expecting in, like, December. Or they're expecting their first child in December, so he's probably gonna be there for that. But nonetheless, Seth Rollins is a big winner in this draft because he gets a fresh start on SmackDown. Another winner I initially had, I mean, he's still a winner, but he's also a loser. It's Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens also a big winner and loser. I thought Kevin Owens, like, could have used a fresh start on SmackDown. Plus, he's also one of the very few baby faces on SmackDown now. So once Jey Uso is done, being Roman Reigns' challenger at Hell in a Cell, Kevin Owens can step in there, even though he hasn't really done anything to deserve a Universal Championship yet. He can step into that role as the next challenger for the Universal as Roman Reigns' next Universal Championship, and like challenge Roman Reigns to like a 1 or 2 title matches if Roman Reigns coming out on top. So Kevin Owens fills in that like number 3 babyface role for the time being. Then Big E, another big winner in this WWE draft. Now that he's gone from the New Day, but I mean prior to the New Day, he had the charisma, he had the look, he had the moveset to be a big single stars. But ever since he was at the New Day, like he's shown glimpses and flashes that he can even be a bigger single star, like especially with the charisma and his wrestling ability. And now that he's officially alone on SmackDown, he can climb up the ranks and eventually towards a match with whoever the Universal Champion is. It's probably still going to be Roman Reigns by the time he gets there. But nonetheless, Big E finally has a platform on his own to be one of the top guys on SmackDown. And then of course Sami Zayn. Like there was no need to move have the Hurt Business and Sami Zayn swap places. So keeping Sami Zayn on SmackDown as one of the most obnoxious heels in WWE right now, even though he still looks like a taxi cab driver. Get a haircut, Sammy. Get a haircut. But his promo work, wrestling ability, still spot on, still solid. So Sami Zayn's like big winner on this draft. And then we get to the losers. Oh wait, another big winner actually. Honorable mention, big winner, Bianca Belair. I don't need to repeat myself with Bianca Belair, but in case you missed the early part of this podcast, I said Bianca Belair moving to SmackDown was a big win because not only does she have a platform to showcase her skills, but she also has the writing team capable of helping her showcase herself. Now we get to the losers. Otis and Tucker. I don't think this also bears repeating because, well, without each other, without their charming personalities, especially Tucker's, they're not going to last a single second as single stars. I probably predict that Otis is going to lose the Money in the Bank briefcase because, come on. Do we really think that Otis is going to successfully cash in the Money in the Bank contract on this tribal chief hero, Roman Reigns? Realistically, really. There's no... it would be the worst... right now, it would be really one of the worst things that WWE, crack ass could do. And then Tucker, obviously, I mentioned earlier... He's going to be relegated to the mid-card scene. Oh, not even the mid-card scene. The 24/7 R-Truth scene. So, I seriously feel bad for Otis and Tucker. And then Keith Lee. He's still stuck on the brand that has pretty much made him worthless. It's not limitless. It's pretty much worthless. I know he's in this feud with Braun Strowman, but the Raw creative team, I know it's also being led by Bruce Pritchard. It's they're not doing anything to promote his ass. They're not doing anything to, what made Keith Lee so good in NXT? It's nothing. I felt like SmackDown, which was in a need of influx of babyfaces, could have provided the platform for Keith Lee to thrive in the mid-card and actually be a capable challenger to Sami Zayn. Because Sami Zayn needs challengers. I mean, Big E is there too, but Keith Lee could have also been a possible option, viable option. And then Andrade, not only did he lose to Angel Garza last night, but he also lost the services of Zelina Vega because, well, she went to SmackDown and, well, she's probably going to be I guess an okay single star. And then, not only that, Andrade also went undrafted. And it also doesn't help that Andrade's promo skills without Zelina are not great at all. And there's no definable character behind Andrade. So pretty much Andrade is stuck in limbo. He's probably going to end up on Raw because Charlotte is there. So he's as of right now, he's stuck. Like, he's a big loser. Randy Orton is also another big loser. And why do I say he's a big loser? Well, it's because he's in this feud with Drew McIntyre that doesn't seem to end. And like I said, with the Seth Rollins Rey Mysterio thing, like, the point of a draft is to get people out of their existing feuds and not carry them over to different shows. So moving Randy Orton back to SmackDown not only could have give Fox a big name, but also it also further increases the heel count that SmackDown currently has. It also helps give SmackDown a veteran presence. So I don't understand why Randy Orton's still there. And it's like, even if their feud technically ends on Raw, they're probably gonna team up with each other at Survivor Series, and then if WWE doesn't have any challengers for Drew McIntyre, they're probably gonna rehash it again, again and again until they can find one for Drew McIntyre. So Randy Orton's a big loser for staying on Raw. And then the biggest loser of all, actually the second biggest loser of all, is the SmackDown Women's Division, not named Sasha Banks, Bayley, and Bianca Belair, because, like I said, again, like, outside of those three, and to a very slight degree, Carmella, who is still trying to build up this new gimmick, Riot Squad hasn't done anything to build themselves up as a legit challenger to Bayley, and now that they're the only women's tag team on SmackDown, like, who are they gonna face? Who are they gonna face? So they're probably gonna, at some point, they're probably gonna break up. Billie Kay lost Peyton Royce and has been floating around and doing nothing. Natalya, she gives the women's division a veteran presence, but again, she's been doing a whole lot of nothing other than helping Lana with her TikTok before they also broke up. And then Zelina Vega, we've seen glimpses of her wrestling in the past few months, and the sample size is not great. And then I don't know who else I'm missing, but there's probably a couple more wrestlers that are in the bottom barrel, the very bottom barrel of the SmackDown Women's Division. So the entire SmackDown Women's Division that's not named Sasha, Bayley, and Bianca are big losers, and they're going to get exposed at Survivor Series when they likely do the brand warfare. And if they seriously do another multi-woman title match at WrestleMania, it's going to get exposed even further. And of course, the biggest loser of all, the WWE. Like, this, again, the point of this draft was to shake things up and literally end all the feuds that were going on. I mean, it was either that and all the existing feuds that were happening, or draft superstars to SmackDown and then end them at Hell in a Cell. Not just carry them over to different shows and then have people that just watch SmackDown relive all the feuds that were happening on Raw. And not only that, you broke up a bunch of tag teams. You left the SmackDown Women's Division as empty as the Smith house at the end of the Fresh Prince series. And then also, a lot of picks that remained unsigned before they did get signed went lower than they normally would. So I gotta ask, WWE, what are you smoking? What are you seriously smoking? Like, I don't get you, man. I really don't get you. So you had Titus who they have that was like questionably, like without a shadow of a doubt, questionably go up on the highest of high lists. I think Raw had the most questionable like rounds going for it. They had Lars Sullivan going up at 12 when honestly he doesn't deserve like that high of a spot. And then Keith Lee was drafted much lower. I thought he was gonna be at least a second round pick, but Matt Riddle ended up being the second round pick. And then of all people, Titus O'Neil was able to get drafted, and Titus O'Neil and Akira Tozawa, the ninjas, were able to get drafted, and Andrade wasn't. What sense does that make? Like, really, what sense does that make? None whatsoever. So, a lot of this does not make sense. Like, they could have had, 5 rounds each. Not everyone needed to be drafted. Creative. Like, WWE Creative, not everyone needed to be drafted. I don't know what the hell they were doing here. I really didn't. Like, they could have called up some people from NXT. NXT exists, right? Like, it exists on the USA Network. Like, why didn't they just, use the draft, too, to call up people from NXT? Like, with the second pick in the WWE Draft, we select X wrestler from NXT. And it was also outgoing, too, so unfortunately, that's that. And most likely, after this, the draft is going to get ignored again because, the ratings are down and, we need something to shake it up. So, introducing the wildcard brand-to-brand invitational rule. So, they're practically going to ignore the draft again because, they're so desperate for ratings nowadays, especially on Raw, that they just can't seem to get over themselves. Because that 1.6 million is considered a sinking feeling. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. And that's my thoughts on this WWE draft. And let me know how you guys feel about this WWE draft. And I know Noob the Messiah was in the chat, and I'm sorry I didn't get to you because I was just on a roll with my thoughts on this WWE draft. I know you lost your mod status, and I hate to break it to you, you haven't been here, man. You have not been here. You have not been in my streams in the longest time, and I can't mod you because you're not actively in my streams. You're not in my streams on a consistent basis. I mean, I understand that we're all busy, but at this point in time, I'm considering mods that are here on a consistent basis. But anyway, that's it for this episode of DylanLasagna Live. Again, these are my thoughts on the WWE Draft. What did you guys think about it? What were your favorite picks? What were the most reasonable picks? Winners, losers, your takeaways, all that stuff. And again, if you saw that community post, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that, very I guess you could call it distasteful. But I get very frustrated with the state of my channel sometimes because we're not growing. And you know what? I just kind of have to let it out sometimes. I can't hold it in anymore. I really can't hold in how I actually feel about this channel anymore. Because, it's as much as I like doing YouTube, especially with this podcast, nobody's checking it out. Nobody is checking it out. Again, is it my content? Is it me on a personal level? This is a time where I would especially like feedback because otherwise, there's no reason for me to keep going. But I don't know. Not only that, I guess it's also I also have to answer that question too. But anyway, everyone, thank you for joining me on this episode of DylanLasagna Live. I don't know if I'm going to do one again on Friday, but we'll see. But if not, stay tuned for next week if I see something interesting that is of interest. But other than that, thank you for tuning in. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe so my channel doesn't die an even further death. And an important message to the people that subscribe to for my reactions, MLP, action figure vids. If you don't like the content that I'm currently making right now, like the podcast, the discussions and all that, feel free to unsubscribe, Feel free to unsubscribe because it's just like, if you don't like that kind of content, if you don't like the current content I'm making, and just because it's the content that it's not the content that fits you, the unsubscribe button is there. Like, I have no ill will against it. So, like, go ahead. Like, I really don't. I could really care less. But if you do, if you do like the content nonetheless, I appreciate it. But other than that, enough self-pity. Like, I'm not trying to put pity on myself onto you guys. Anyway, everyone, always be delicious. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.